Thank you for joining us for Sermons on Demand from Friendship Grace Brethren Church. We provide these videos as a way to share the pulpit messages and teachings offered at Friendship Grace Brethren Church. If you find these videos a helpful resource, please drop us a note at info@friendshipgracebrethren.com. Now open your Bibles and get ready to dig into the Word of God.
When we read Ephesians 5:22 through 33, we should see an event so grand, it will be the completion of the redemption of man in this created land from foreign contraband. But allow me to be wrong to assume that this event is about me or you, because it's not. It's about Jesus Christ, the bridegroom. And the church as his bride, see, we're being sanctified to a condition so pristine, we'll be the most beautiful bride in the history of the cosmos right by his side. The Ephesians 5 husband-Christ simile plays out covenantally and breaks the back of internet infidelity, browser history erased temporarily. Because the devil in the tech of a XXX.com search is not loving your wife like Christ loved the church, men. This is loving yourself and your own flesh first. And see, this happens because Satan attacked Eve to get Adam to sin. Women have power over powerful men, and history repeats this consistent trend time and time again, from Cleopatra to Marilyn Monroe. The ancient Egyptians to the Kennedys know that seemingly powerful men are vulnerable. So wives, submit to your husband's authority. Now, this doesn't mean you're a minority, but rather a ruling authority within this marital majority with equal seniority. Because if the two become one, it's husband and wife first, then the church. Eve was created from the rib of Adam, who was made first from the dirt of the earth. And quite simply, the Apostle Paul scribes and writes this down as being a mystery. Imagine that. The comprehension of your marriage is beyond your recognition, but it's held together covenantally by a God on a mission. So really it comes down to this. The Lord has chosen to use the covenant of marriage as the representation to every tongue, tribe, and nation of he and the church's interpersonal relation. Ladies and gentlemen, your marriage reflects that fact to every single non-believing inhabitant spread across the map. Well, that was from a seeker-sensitive church, and last time I checked, normal is working, because normal is what the covenant of marriage is all about. There isn't anything weird that we should be doing to make it better. Now, Christian marriage is about respect. I think that most of you maybe picked up on that within the 2-minute spoken word that was these verses that we're studying this morning. Christian marriage is about respect, and it's about submission that is reciprocal. And that's something that we need to understand. That this isn't one person dominating another. It's about respect and submission that is reciprocal. The title for today's sermon is Love and Marriage. Love and marriage. What we want to learn this morning from this text, if we break it down into one sentence, this is what it is. Husbands and wives should submit to one another like the church does Jesus Christ. Husbands and wives should submit to one another like the church does Jesus Christ. We have one question that we're asking of these verses this morning. Ephesians 5:22 through 33. One simple question. And that question is this: what is love and marriage? From these 11 verses, what do we know about love and marriage? Well, the first thing that we know about love and marriage is this. We know that it is submission. Ephesians 5:22. Wives, submit to your own husband as to the Lord. Wives, submit to your own husband as to the Lord. Marriage is a relationship in which one person is always right and the other person is the husband. I'm married. I've been married for 12 years. I know how to set the joke up properly because I have to go home at some point today. and I need to sleep in a comfortable bed. Submit, it says. Submit. That means to yield or to give up. That's what the Apostle Paul's trying to get across here. So let's look at this again. Wives, submit to your own husband as to the Lord. So actually, in observance of this particular verse, it's more like marriage is a relationship in which one person is always right and the other is the husband or the wife, or however you want to look at it. Compare this absolute truth that we see to secular society in their message. Society favors equality, not submission. This isn't something that society would look at and say, we want to get on that plan. This is the opposite of what society teaches. Imagine the backlash if the male traded places with the female in the beer commercial as you watch football today and the beer commercial comes on. Imagine if the male in that commercial traded places with the female. You guys know what I'm talking about, don't you? They make the male look foolish. They make the male look weak. They just make the male look like an ignoramus. And the female is the one that's dominating the male. What if the male and female traded roles in the commercial? What if the female was made to look foolish? What if the female was made to look ignorant? What if the female was made to look weak? Do you think society would be okay with that message? Or do you think there would be some backlash? Well, that's the direction the world is heading. In a commercial for men with ED. This is serious. I know some of you guys have more experience with these commercials than what I do. It's making more sense. But seriously, in a commercial with men with ED, or for men with ED, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Do I need to explain ED? Are you guys all on board with me here? Because I'm getting some blank stares. Okay, one of those commercials. You ever notice how the female is always ready, lying in wait for the husband and his little magical pill to kick in through the bloodstream? No pun intended. You ever notice that? It's the female who's ready, but the weak male, no, he's not ready, is he? He's got to take a pill. Wives, submit to your own husband as to the Lord. Submit, yield to your husband. Submit to your own husband as to the Lord neutralizes the feminist rebuttal. It neutralizes where society is heading. How can you be concerned with being equal when you're humbling yourself in submission? If you humble yourself in submission to your husband, you're not concerned with being equal. As to the Lord, the Apostle Paul writes, and this is the motivating factor of why a wife should submit to her husband. Wives, submit to your husbands out of obedience, not necessarily to your husband, but submit to your husband out of obedience to the Lord. Our obedience to Christ is rooted in submission to the grace gifted to us. This is God's created order, not the world's. Last time I checked, this is God's law and order. Things operate on His schedule, not ours. But we're trying to reverse that if we allow ourselves to allow the world to tell us how it's going to be. And this fact is proven in our next verse. What is love and marriage? We understand that love and marriage is submission. Ephesians 5:23 states, "For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior." Christian leadership is like killing two birds with one stone. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. What did Christ leave heaven and come here to earth for? What did he come here to do? What does Scripture tell us? What was the purpose? Matthew 20:28. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. He didn't come here to be served. He came here to serve. The husband is the servant leader of the wife. Men, lead your wife while simultaneously paying attention to every detail of her needs. You can start serving by doing some housework. It's a great place to start. I know some of you women right now are like, yeah, preach it. Come on. Didn't you hear that sermon this morning, honey? He said you can start by doing some housework. It's just unfortunate that some of you men in this room thinking doing housework is lifting your legs while your wife vacuums the living room. That doesn't qualify as housework. And is himself its Savior. What God created and called good has been tainted by sin. God exhausted his wrath by making Jesus sin who knew no sin in order to save his creation. This is the supreme example of servant leadership, especially as we know Jesus submitted in obedience. All the cosmos know no better example of this than Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. Society's egalitarian, that's a word that you would hear, or you could just sum that up by saying the idea that all people are equal, doesn't want to be in a position that anybody is the head over anybody. Nobody's going to be the head over me. I'm not going to submit to anybody because I'm equal. It's a false message. We need to submit. And that's why Christian leadership, as we see it with Christ first and foremost, it's killing two birds with one stone because one, you're leading, but at the same time, you're serving. That's why there's no dominating force over another, especially when it comes to love and marriage. So what is love and marriage? Love and marriage is also godly relational representation. Love and marriage is godly relational representation. And we see this from our next verse, Ephesians 5, verse 24. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husband. A model, I'm not talking about a supermodel, but you could think of it as a supermodel, any type of model airplane, a model building that's going to be built. A model, in general, will identify the expectations and establish guidelines for what should be. As the church submits to Christ, so also wives submit in everything to their husbands. This is the wife's guideline for submission. Jesus Christ. How does the church submit to Christ then? That's the question we should be asking. If Jesus Christ is our model, then how should we submit to him? There's 4 ways we can do this. 1, recognize Christ as the head. That's first and foremost. That's our starting spot. You have to start from the fact, proven, truth, absolutely, that Jesus Christ is the head of the church. The second thing you can do is reciprocate his love. The third thing, use his gifts for the benefit of growth. The gifts in which he's given you, use those gifts for others to grow. They're for growth. They're to edify believers. And 4, be thankful in everything because of him, no matter what. And Pastor Rich talked about that last week, especially the lady where her car broke down. Give thanks to Jesus Christ for everything, no matter what. What's the problem with a Christless marriage? We all know people who are married, but they're not married in a Christ-centered relationship. Jesus Christ is not even on their radar. Those marriages, the marriages without Jesus, what are the issues? What are the problems with those marriages that don't have Jesus Christ in them? Well, there's 4 things as well. The first is there is no head. Neither the husband nor the wife is the head of the relationship. And we know that's true because you can only be the head if you are allowing yourself to follow Christ. The second thing is their love is self-serving. They're in it for themselves. The third is they have no spiritual gifts. They're not believers, so they haven't been gifted, so there is no growth. And the fourth is they're only thankful for anything when the going is good. That's why we see such a high rate of divorce. God has chosen to use the covenant of marriage as the representation to every tongue, tribe, and nation of He and the church's interpersonal relation. We get to be on the forefront of that truth. If you are married, God is using your marriage to represent to everybody else. Non-believers, believers alike, what He is doing, His commitment level to His church, His bride. What is love and marriage? If Jesus is the head of the church, and we know that He's committed to His covenant with the church, we know that it has to be sacrificial because Jesus did die a sacrificial death upon the cross. Ephesians 5 verse 25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave Himself up for her. Gentlemen, are you willing to put yourself between unleashed deadly misfortune and its intended target? Are you willing to do what Tim McCarthy did for President Reagan in 81? Thank you, Chuck. That was before I was born, but I know a little bit of history. He wasn't here last time I preached, I believe, but I was able to mention, or maybe you were. As he shielded the president from Hinckley's .22 caliber bullet. Are you willing to go to that extreme? As a servant leader, would you sacrifice your life for the sake of your wives? That's what Jesus did for the church, His bride. Husbands, love your wives is an exhortation or an urging by the Apostle Paul for a reason. When he says, husbands, love your wives, he's saying that for a reason. Why would Paul exhort husbands to love their wives? Most people would say, well, I married her, didn't I? So of course I must love her. But that's where the whole Frank Sinatra song, Love and Marriage Goes Together Like a Horse and Carriage, doesn't make any sense. Because just because you're married doesn't mean you have to love. And we've seen that with society's approach to marriage. But the Christian approach to marriage, we must love. Because love is not an emotion. It's a decision. You make the decision to be committed to love. John Stott says it best when he says this. He says, love is a servant of the will, not a victim of the emotion. Divorce is for those who have become victims of the emotion of love. Those who think that love is a feeling. They start dating and they have a certain feeling and then it starts to wear off and then next thing you know, you just grow further and further apart. Because if you don't have Christ, you don't understand that you have made a decision to love the one that you have gone into that covenant with. It's a daily decision. If it were an emotion, it'd be easy. You wouldn't have to work at it. It would just be a feeling that you feel and you just go with it. It'd be like a drug. Marriage is a decision because love is a decision. We have to be committed to that decision. And gave Himself up for her, Paul reminds us. In love, Christ was a servant of God's will, even when it meant death. That puts new meaning to until death do us part. For those of you who are not married, apply being a servant of the will of God to your devotion to the church. This isn't just for those who are married. You have an opportunity as well. What is love and marriage? Love and marriage is purity. Love and marriage is purity. Ephesians 5, verse 26, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word. I was never much of a physics scholar, but I do remember Newton's third law. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. What is the reaction to Christ's sacrificial action? The reaction to Christ's sacrificial action is that he may sanctify her. What does sanctification or sanctify her mean? Sanctification is the process God takes us through in order to make us holy. We're being set apart to do his will. That's what sanctification is. See, holiness directly contradicts sinfulness. What does having cleansed her with the washing of water mean? With the word. See, nowhere in Scripture does it indicate that the church was ever baptized. However, there was a Jewish premarital washing, which was adopted through pagan religions. And some may say that this is where that comes from. The Roman Catholics have hijacked this same type of idea with their holy water. So how does with the word play into all of this? Because that's really where we need to focus. How does with the word play into what Paul's telling us right here with sanctification? The washing is the gospel message, the good news of salvation. The word. Let's continue our focus on purity by still asking this question: what is love and marriage? Love and marriage is purity. Ephesians 5:27, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. You know what all bridezillas have in common? You guys have seen the show Bridezillas. You know what all bridezillas have in common besides crying, cussing, screaming, and throwing an all-out tantrum? It's all about me. My wedding day. Me, 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 me. That's what all bridezillas have in common. Their cussing, screaming, tantrum throwing might manifest itself differently, but they all think it's about them. So that he might present the church to himself. This wedding ceremony is all about the bridegroom, not the bride. This wedding ceremony is all about Jesus. It's not about us. In splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. One commentator states this. He says, for the present, the church on earth is often in rags and tatters, stained and ugly, deposed and rejected. The gospel or good news reveals that God planned to redeem us from this since before the foundation of the world. That's the good news of hope. That's the washing of the word. That's the message that we have. I mean, how often do you hire a photographer to follow you around and take pictures of you all day long? Maybe once on your wedding day? It isn't an everyday thing. Our God is beautifying the believer and church alike. And the reason why I say that is because we're being beautified beyond our ability to pretty ourselves up. And that's unlike the mentality of a bridezilla. A bridezilla is throwing a tantrum because things aren't going her way. Because she's trying to do it on her own. We don't do this on our own. He's doing this for us. But that's why we have to submit to the head, because we can't be beautified unless we first submit. What is love and marriage? This is the last thing that we see from the text. Love and marriage is singular, uno, one. Marriage is singular. It's uno, one. Ephesians verses 28 and 29 out of chapter 5. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. The opposite of this is like taking a selfie in the mirror. You guys have seen people do that. I know some of you guys are like, what's up with this younger generation? Every selfie that I see in the mirror isn't from most of your generation, us younger folk in the room. Our generation loves us, some of ourselves. But it's like taking that selfie in the mirror and then posting it on Facebook and then going around in person and complaining to everybody about your physical appearance. If you take the selfie in the mirror, you probably think you look pretty good. I mean, especially if you are going to post it, right? When Paul writes, he who loves his wife loves himself, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it. This is indicating that a husband should care for his wife as he does himself. Husbands, you should be devoted to your wife the exact same way that you're devoted to yourself. Why should we do this? Well, because we are members of his body. That's why. Verse 30. We are members of his body. This is his body, not ours. And he's asking us to help in our efforts to take care of his body. He's given us that opportunity. What is love and marriage? Love and marriage is singular because we are one. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 31. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. What's becoming ever more increasingly popular in society? People are doing this. They're trying to do this. See, what's becoming even more increasingly popular in society today is a boy shall leave his father and mother and hold on loosely to his girlfriend by moving in with her in plain marriage like a 6-year-old girl plays with Barbies in a dollhouse. And trust me, I know all about 6-year-old girls playing with Barbies in a dollhouse. I have one at home. I know what that looks like. That's what society's doing. The generation today thinks it's okay to test drive the car before you buy it. We're going to move in together, and then we'll see how things work out. And if things go well, maybe we'll think about marriage. That's becoming the norm. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother. Therefore, I'm going to repeat this like 3 times. I want this to sink in. Therefore, a man should leave his father and mother. That's the second time. Ready for the third one? Therefore, a man should leave his father and mother. You know what that tells me? That tells me getting married is the manly thing to do. Paul doesn't say a boy. Boys don't get married. The manly thing to do, the mature thing to do, is to get married. The Bible never addresses dating. This is as close as it gets. Because God's not dating the church. God didn't ask for the church's digits. He's not going to test drive the church. He's not going to move in with the church for a little bit and see how things work out. God is in a covenant relationship with his church, his bride, and he's dedicated to that decision that he's made. It's not an emotion. See, you move in together because the emotion is still high. And then it starts to wane, but the next thing you know, you're in over your head because you got bills together. Maybe one has their name on the mortgage, but they need the other person's income. I've heard it all. I know a 56-year-old boy who's a friend of mine, and he's still living with his live-in girlfriend because if they got married, then they wouldn't get the benefits that she gets for having her kids go to the state university. They would lose that money because she's a single mom, according to her taxes. So there's all kinds of excuses out there. But the truth is, getting married is the manly thing to do. Hold fast to his wife. This is an encouragement to bear down, grit it out, stay the course. And that's how we know that love is a decision. You've got to stay the course of that decision. That's what hold fast means. Remember, love is that decision. And you need to stay committed to the decision that you've made. And the two shall become one flesh. Eve was formed from the rib of Adam. Genesis 2:23. Then the man said, the man, he didn't say the boy, the man, this at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. The Holy Spirit in us makes us one with God in the same manner. That's the beautiful thing. Woman comes from man. God has put his Spirit in us. We are one with him because of what Jesus has done. So let's find out more about what we know about this union by asking that one question that we're asking today. What is love and marriage? Love and marriage is singular, uno, one. It's one. Ephesians 5:32. This mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. See, this is what I love about being able to study the text all week long. You guys saw the opening intro for today's sermon. That was something that I was able to write maybe 3 years ago and perform at a church. Well, in that study to write that, I thought I had it pretty nailed down, these 11 verses, and then this week I study this verse and I realized I had it wrong in that spoken word that I did. See, this part here where it says, this mystery is profound. I took it and stopped there and I thought, oh, Paul's saying that this mystery is profound and you just can't fathom it. And I think I made reference to it in that spoken word, but that's not what he's saying. See, have you guys ever looked at one of these? Where you cross your eye and then all of a sudden the image appears. Right now you can't see it. And then you keep staring longer and longer. And then before you know it, oh man, this 3D image pops out, right? The magic eye. That's what this is. See, this is the Old Testament before the New Testament about this mystery. And then all of a sudden it comes into focus. That's what Paul is talking about. This covenant of marriage has been revealed in the New Testament. It was a profound mystery, but now it's been revealed. Husbands and wives, your oneness represents Christ's union to the church, and you have an opportunity to do this for the rest of the world. So this profound mystery that we now know about, as believers, we can see what's in this magic eye and what it looks like and how we should behave accordingly. And we can now represent that to the rest of the world. How do we know that this application is true? The very last verse for this morning. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. How do you love your spouse? How you love your spouse is a direct reflection on your walk with the Lord. We have an awesome opportunity to show others what it's like to be in a relationship with God, with how we love the one that God has given us, the one that we're committed to. We have an opportunity to be committed to love in the covenant of marriage the exact same way that our Creator has committed himself to the covenant with his bride, us, the church. That's awesome. And that's something we can't take lightly. What we see in these 11 verses in one sentence. Husbands and wives should submit to one another like the church does Jesus Christ. We asked one question. What is love and marriage? Love in marriage is submission first and foremost. Society does not want to submit to anybody. We have an opportunity to showcase what true submission looks like. What is love and marriage? Love and marriage is godly relational representation. We get to represent to the rest of the world what it's like to be in a relationship with the Creator. Love and marriage is sacrificial. Jesus Christ is the ultimate example of sacrificing himself. Love and marriage is purity. We're being beautified by the Creator. We can't clean ourselves up. We don't pretty ourselves up. Love and marriage is one. We are one flesh. You are one flesh with your wife. We are one flesh with Jesus Christ, the bridegroom. Heavenly Father, your word is powerful. Your word is penetrating to the depths of our heart, Lord, where we harbor sin that needs to be rooted out. I pray that we allow your Holy Spirit to do the work that needs to be done in our hearts so we can receive your word appropriately. We pray this in the name of Jesus Christ.
Thank you for watching or listening to this teaching on demand from Friendship Grace Brethren Church. Please consider sending us an email at info@friendshipgracebrethren.com to let us know how this teaching may have helped you. Please also consider joining us in person at Friendship Grace Brethren Church, located at 10251 Metro Parkway, Suite 116, Fort Myers, Florida, just south of the intersection of Metro and Colonial Boulevard. Sunday school begins at 9 and worship service at 10 a.m. We look forward to seeing you in person at Friendship Grace Brethren Church.